again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone once again, ready to talk the penultimate episode of maybe season 1 of Watchmen. Of course, joining me is my fellow co-host, fellow Watchmen watcher, and just all-around wonderful person, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
It's August 2014. I am talking to my friend, Charles Skaggs, for a new podcast called Next Stop Everywhere. It is also December 15th, 2019, and I am still talking to my good friend, Charles Skaggs, about Watchmen. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. So you obviously had that planned in advance.
Yes, I did. Yes,
that was very clever of you. Very
Thank
clever.
you.
Very clever.
Charles.
Obviously, here at episode 173, we're going to talk. God walks into a bar.
Yes,
and not a bar, but a bar, as in Calvin Abar. And we'll talk about that here shortly.
I don't know who came up with that punny title, but good for them.
I have a little trivia on how that title came about.
Oh, good, because I'm watching this episode, and at the end, I went, "This was amazing," and then I started thinking about all the fans who used to complain about The Sopranos. Nothing happened; they just talked to each other. No one got whacked.
Right.
And I said,
I like how you did that in a kind of a New Jersey.
Yes.
Goomba voice. Yeah.
If someone says nothing happened in this episode, but Angela and Cal talking, you obviously do not understand this show.
Right. Or you don't understand genius. Watchmen.
Yes.
Yeah, because what's brilliant about this episode, and we'll talk about this more, is that it's structured in such a way that it in itself it's a bootstrap paradox, to use a term that recently got a lot of play on Doctor Who not too long ago.
Yes.
Where essentially it's the chicken and the egg argument, where you don't know which one came first. And that's kind of why I think eggs are kind of used as a regular metaphor in Watchmen.
Yes.
Because of the whole timey-wiminess, especially with Dr. Manhattan.
Right.
That, where something that happens in his future create something in the past, and it, because Dr. Manhattan experiences time all at once, to him it's just happening all at the same time, his time. But obviously for someone like Angela, and we'll talk about this more, that she has to walk the long road and experiences events chronologically, so it's very different for her.
Yeah.
So this was obviously episode 8 of Watchmen season 1, aired on December 8th, 2019, written by Jeff Jensen, who was a major writer for Entertainment Weekly.
Yes.
And also he wrote back in the 90s. He co-wrote the DC Comics series Team Titans. So a little bit of a Titan Talk connection.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, he wrote that, when Phil Jimenez was drawing Team Titans back in the 90s. The New Titans spinoff series. And it was also obviously co-written by Damon Lindelof, directed by Nicole Castle, who obviously directed the first 2 episodes of Watchmen, It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice, and Martial Feats of Comanche Horsemanship.
Yeah. So Jeff was a huge Lost expert.
Yes.
And
wrote a lot of articles about it. Yes.
Yeah. And he, I think that's where Damon Lindelof first became aware of him, because he went into so deep and so theories that I think I read an article once that Damon said he would call him and go, "Hey, now remind me about this."
Right.
And I think I'm being a little bit cute, but so I thought it was good to see this. This was a tough episode to write. It's got to be, and it was so well done.
Right.
It just very, very cool.
Yeah, this is obviously coming from my writer's perspective. I I love the script for this. I love the fact of how it all connected, everything, from beginning, all connected all the way through the end, and it created this kind of tapestry, and it was just so wonderfully executed that obviously we're going to probably give this one very high marks. So stay tuned for that. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I thought this was just outstanding in general. All right. So that trivia I was mentioning earlier. So the title of the script, A God Walks into a Bar. Now, originally it was announced as A God Walks into a Bar, like the joke, like so-and-so walks into a bar. Yeah. Well, apparently they decided to change it right before it aired, or not right before it aired, but they kept it secret, obviously.
Yes.
And apparently this title was just something that happened randomly because apparently they gave Angela the surname Abar early in the development, and then later as they were storyboarding episodes, apparently director Nicole Castle saw that one of the writers had put down the words "walks into a bar," and so as a concept for this episode, and then upon seeing that, they realized the how it kind of played off the name Abar. So it's just kind of one of those things that worked perfectly, and especially obviously the meaning, that where you have Dr. Manhattan entering the deceased body, as we find out, of Calvin Abar.
So that was kind of fun. This is a genius title. There's been some great titles, and there are shows that could learn. I'm looking at you, Titans, on how to do better episode titles from this show, because each of these titles, once again, I'm gushing all over this show, but when you have the bar of the Watchmen miniseries, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, those 12 issues is such a high bar. And when you say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then when you do it so well, it's just something really impressive.
Yeah, it is. And, obviously the cast really steps in this one. Regina King is phenomenal. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who plays Cal, and Dr. Manhattan, does a phenomenal job, I think. Obviously there's a lot of, I'm sure some fans were put off because, oh no, Dr. Manhattan's black now.
Yeah.
But, and we get to see Dr. Manhattan with Yahya's facial features. So that was a little different. We got to see him with normal eyes. And, I know some people had problems with that. That's on them.
Because I'm sitting here watching this.
Because he's phenomenal in this.
Yeah, and it's the first off, I know that often genre shows do not get a lot of love in the Emmys.
No kidding. Yes.
But I would hope because it's HBO.
Yes.
And because, Game of Thrones has kind of broken that, barrier. I hope there's some love on this. Yeah. Because it's just amazing. And I still think there's a stigma regarding comic book shows, though. Yeah, I think and
superhero shows. If it involves a superhero, apparently the Emmys are just like, no, couldn't. This is we're serious artistes. We can't do this.
But once again, as we're sitting here talking about it, you go, how well put together is this, and the performances are amazing, and this show is about something. This show is about relationships. It's about race in the modern world, and so that's why the idea, and we'll do a crossover point, right? We just talked about where John Creder's Lex Luthor is in Smallville, and he says to Clark Kent,
and you're talking about on Crisis Infinite Earths, the crossover event that we talked about here last week.
And so there is, Lex Luthor says, while he's talking to Tom Welling, who is Clark Kent, apparently in this world, Superman is Clark Kent, which could never happen anywhere else, because he can't imagine and that's been a common theme in DC Comics, that Luthor cannot imagine someone having as little bit of an ego as Clark Kent and Superman to pretend to be somebody that, small when you're that big. And so the idea that,
like, you're a god, why would you give up that
yeah,
to play human?
And so here we have a god in this universe that not only gave up his godhood, but did it to do an African-American male. Is just an interesting thought. So well done, Watchmen.
And, obviously, we might as well just go ahead and start talking about our first topic.
Yeah.
So topic number one, we're going to talk about, obviously, John and Angela. So this is Dr. Manhattan and Sister Night, how those two crazy kids hooked up in the first place, and how John got that little device in his forehead.
Yes.
That Angela was so kind enough to dig out with a claw hammer in her kitchen last time. So, Jesse, I know we've got a lot of thoughts about this, but what was your take, obviously, on John and Angela and the way John introduces himself to her, and these two form their relationship, and we get the backstory of how Dr. Manhattan became Calvin Abar.
So she's in the bar. And kind of,
in Saigon, yeah, it's 2009 Saigon. I think it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
That 2009, that's the year the Watchmen movie came out.
Yeah, and she's in her police uniform, and she's drinking, and there's obviously some kind of celebration going on, because it's the anniversary of when I assume it's something to do with the when. Dr. Manhattan won the war, right? In Vietnam,
right?
Started its path to become the 51st state,
right?
And she's there, kind of in a remembrance of her parents dying,
because that's also the anniversary, of her parents dying,
right? Because the last time there was a celebration, there was a celebration going on when the car bomb or the backpack bomb went off.
The suicide bomber. Yeah.
And so she's just there in her thoughts, drinking a little bit, and he comes over, and she at first puts off by him, and then she starts enjoying the banter back and forth.
Right.
And I think Regina King plays that really well. As in, I don't buy this load of crap this guy is giving whatsoever, but I'm going to keep with it because he's
persistent.
Yeah, and also he keeps weaving the story in such a way that makes it not realistic, but he doesn't lose, in her mind, he doesn't lose the narrative. He just keeps. He's coming up with it. And she's like, well, I will give you this, right? And I think she's entertained by him. And she thinks it's kind of funny. And what the hell? It's just a night, and this guy is it appears like she enjoys talking to him. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think obviously she starts off initially resistant to the conversation. She just kind of blows him off as this Dr. Manhattan, cosplayer, essentially.
Right.
And because there's a lot of people, we see a lot of like an overweight guy painted all blue.
Yes.
During this whole celebration thing. It's almost like this Mardi Gras type event.
Yes.
And so she's just very dismissive. And he sits down and he starts dropping things here and there that kind of interests her, and makes it intrigues her a little bit. And over the course of the conversation, she starts to get into it. He kind of wins her over at least enough to keep talking, and then she kind of gets into it and starts to try to challenge his cosplaying, what she views as his cosplaying, trying to trip him up. But obviously, he's not going to be tripped up,
right? Because he's telling the truth. And I love that
Even when he takes his mask off,
Yeah.
that he had picked up off the street in the beginning,
Yeah.
he's still painted blue underneath, or at least she thinks he's painted blue.
Yeah. Why are you not glowing? And,
Right.
But, what a great moment where, if I tell you why you're here, will you let me sit down?
Right.
And she goes, okay, kind of like, all right, go ahead, frat boy, give your pitch.
Yeah.
Right. Give me your best pickup line. And he nails it. And so okay, you can sit. And then the whole yin yang chicken and egg bootstrap of, how did you know that? Because you told me.
Right.
No, I hadn't. You will. And then he plays it where he's actually surprised when she tells him later, even though he'd already told her like 10 minutes ago.
Right.
That's hard to act that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, but it is, and we mere mortals.
And that's a credit to, I think, to also the, not just the actors, but I think it's also a credit to the director, Nicole Castle.
Yeah.
For probably, making sure everybody stays on point about where they are in this timeline at this particular moment.
And the idea that he's going, oh, yeah, this is when I knew that. And there's so many moments of that, going all the way back to almost the end of the episode where he says, this is the moment.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah.
This is when I fell in love with you. Wait a minute. But this is at almost the end of our relationship. Because it's all the same to him, he's loved her this whole 10 years, even though it was in the future when he got it. And we can't grasp time that way, but it's perfectly normal to him.
Right, exactly. So when he's talking with her in Saigon, he's talking about the moment that he fell in love with her, which for her hasn't happened yet. But because he experiences everything at the same time,
yeah,
the future is the present to him. And so what happens at that moment later on where he falls in love with her, the moment that she stands up and tries to take on a whole huge group of 7th Cavalry guys by herself to protect him. That's the moment he falls in love. That's the moment he falls in love with her.
She refuses to accept the fact that they're in an unwinnable situation. She is going to keep fighting for him and her and their family. I just think it's interesting, probably out of order, but I need to ask you, why do you think...
given this story, being out of order may not be out of order. It's all happening at the same time.
Well done, Charles.
Thank you.
Why do you think it was important for them to see him on the swimming pool?
That's a good question. I have my theory.
I knew you'd have a theory. You never let me down, Charles. Okay.
Okay, so my theory about this. If you remember earlier in the conversation, Angela and John talked about how John was able to transfer his powers.
Yes.
And that he could create presumably a consumable and that someone else could ingest and then transfer his powers that way. So my theory is that in the season finale that we're going to watch tonight, as we're recording this on December 15th, that I think Angela is going to consume this, and she's going to be remembering that moment. Now, what reason, we don't know yet.
Okay.
But I think Angela is going to be taking on Dr. Manhattan's powers for whatever purpose.
Do you think that...
And it's all tied to that scene on the pool.
Do you think that they're going to use the religious imagery of her going into the pool like she's being baptized and rising again as a Dr. Manhattan?
Well, I think it's mostly been that they've been using the image of walking on water. You know how Jesus walks on water, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, are you still there? All right.
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
all right. Just saw the camera go out. All right.
Okay, go because I can't see you, but you can see me.
I can't see you.
Okay.
All right. So we're having all kinds of fun technical
We are all
difficulties.
having so many. Yes.
Exactly. All right. So
I will
Skype.
edit. I will edit this one if you want me to, Charles.
That's all right. No problem. I can do
Okay.
it. So,
Okay.
the
Do you think John is dead?
I think John disappears.
Because
I think it. John says it ends in tragedy. Their relationship, but I'm thinking that Angela will be the one walking on water. She'll walk on that pool like he did, for whatever reason. So we'll see if I'm right about that one.
Because I keep thinking of that scene in the Watchmen comic where Adrian, and they talk about that, Adrian tries to kill him.
Yes.
And, John says, this was the very first trick I learned, how to put myself back together.
Right.
So I'm thinking there's no way that these clowns in the 7th Cavalry can come up with a weapon that can destroy him unless he wants to be destroyed. If there is a greater pattern, and maybe
a greater purpose.
Yeah, maybe he knows this is when he is supposed to, move on, and therefore he doesn't put himself back together.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot to ask, a lot to wonder about.
Well, here's my question. If he passes on his power to Angela, presumably he becomes human again, vulnerable.
Yes.
So maybe in the process, he sacrifices himself to transfer his power in the process of transferring his power to Angela. And then he dies.
That makes sense.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
And she kind of becomes the new Dr. Manhattan.
If that happens, that's a big departure from the comic. I wonder if.
Well, but it might be a way to continue the series.
Yeah, I wonder if you. I don't know if I wrote this.
Yes.
I would have the courage to kill off
Dr. Manhattan,
a major character.
Right.
I would feel almost like I can't do that. But if that serves the story, maybe it's the best thing.
We'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but we'll find out what happens. Obviously, there's a lot that could happen, and we're curious to see if this actually is a solid ending for the series, or it's just kind of this season's arc that ends.
Yeah. Do you have a theory on why she did not show? Why she showed the 3 white guys first before showing the black body?
I think she was probably feeling that because she knew Dr. Manhattan's identity was public. So maybe she figured that, you're talking about the corpses that Angela shows Dr. Manhattan to decide which body. Mm-hmm. I think she probably felt he would be comfortable with another white body.
Okay.
But with Dr. Manhattan, and that's a really wonderful thing about Dr. Manhattan is that it's all just particles to him. He doesn't.
Yes.
He's so transcended all of that distinction between race.
Yes.
He just sees it as a collection of particles. So that's why he says it doesn't matter to him, because it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So a white body, an Asian body, and an African American body, it doesn't matter to him. Yeah. So he wants her to choose the one she would feel comfortable with, and that's why she finally brings out Calvin's body.
Yes.
Which of course is African American, and she says, "I would feel comfortable with this body."
Yeah.
Meaning she would feel comfortable with him in a African American's body as opposed to a white guy's body.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So,
I feel like there should be so much more we're talking about with this too.
Well, there are. I mean, we need to talk about Dr. Manhattan explaining how he created life on Europa, and the whole Adam and Eve. Him essentially creating his own Adam and Eve with Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks, and bringing the manor there, and why he brought that manor there. What did you make of that sequence?
So I felt like they had kind of told us what we already suspected.
Yes.
Which was nice, and it's kind of nice to see that the warden is the very first, clone that he created. I liked seeing the background of why this was, why he used them in that imagery, how that the couple from Britain were very kind to him.
Even after, essentially as a kid, he's kind of trolling around this manor house, which was kind of a refugee place for displaced victims during the World War II.
Yes.
And, his father and he had escaped Nazi Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And were kind of hiding out in this English manor house, and until a place could be found for them. So essentially, before they emigrated to America, and he's rummaging around the house as a kid, and he goes into their bedroom and sees them come in. He ducks into a closet and watches them making love. Right. He says, "This is the first time I've seen two human beings make love."
And he talked about how joyous it was.
Right.
And how, because it appears he came from a very bad, like his mom and dad did not have a very strong relationship.
Right.
She left for a Nazi, person, a Nazi officer. They talked about that.
Right.
So to see that was kind of cool for him.
Well, and it was also a teachable moment, because afterwards they because he drops an apple or something inside the closet, and don't think I didn't pick up on the significance of an apple.
Oh, absolutely.
And so they sit him down and they have a very mature conversation about it. They're like, "Look, we're not mad at you. We were just in the process of trying to create life."
Yes.
And that's how he explains it to him. And because they say they lost their son, they lost apparently they had another child that apparently died. So they're trying to have another one. And because it's God's will, according to them. And so they give him a Bible, and the woman, the one that looks like Miss Crookshanks, she says, "I want you to promise me to do something beautiful with your life."
Yes.
And so he remembers this, so that when he becomes Dr. Manhattan and he goes to Europa, he essentially creates life there. We get the explanation for all the Phillipses and the Crookshanks.
Yes.
And like you said, the game warden is essentially the original Mr. Phillips, and presumably the prosecutor was the original Miss Crookshanks.
Yes.
During Adrian's trial.
I think so.
And so they're essentially his Adam and Eve. And so he brings that manor house there, remembering that moment.
And I thought it was really cool.
Because it was important to him.
Yes, it was very important to him. Did you catch that the scene of Adam and Eve in the Bible, drawn by Dave Gibbons?
Yes.
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 Which I thought was a nice little Easter egg and nod to the that one of the creators of this great world. Right.
Alan Moore obviously has zero desire to associate anything with Watchmen, anything with comics that he's done with DC Comics, because he harbors a serious grudge.
Yes.
But Dave Gibbons, his co-creator, is perfectly willing to work with the series and work with DC Comics. So essentially, Dave doesn't share Alan's opinions, and so he's willing to contribute, and I think that's wonderful on Dave's part.
Yeah, I do too,
and I'm really glad he is.
Yes.
I wouldn't expect him to, but he's perfectly willing to, and I appreciate that immensely.
Absolutely.
So, what did you now the big confrontation between Angela and the 7th Cavalry? We should talk about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
we talked about how, that was the moment that John falls in love with her. And so what did you make of the sequence where Angela takes on the 7th Cavalry by herself? I thought that was a very cool moment.
I thought it was a very cool moment. She's going to protect her family. She's going to protect the man she loves. She's going out there fighting the good fight. And it's a great sequence. And then when it looks really, really
grim.
Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he shows up. And
does
Dr. Manhattan's there, but
he does his whole Dr. Manhattan thing, yes.
Yeah, which was great.
Right.
I mean, it was so great.
And then leading, of course, to that moment where he's standing in front of the cannon.
Yes.
And looks at her, and she feels like, oh, everything's okay now. You were wrong.
Yes.
And he kind of looks at her and he goes, no, I wasn't. And that's the moment he gets sucked into that cannon.
Yes.
So,
which was a great ending.
tachyonic cannon that they were told. But because tachyons are essentially associated with time, as we know from Doctor Who and Star Trek. So, all right, but that was it's a very powerful moment. I don't think he's dead, at least not yet.
I don't think so.
I think he's essentially I think he's in a holding tank. Kind of like Ghostbusters. When they put out the traps and they trap the ghost and then they load it up into their little storage facility.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought.
Oh, I like that.
Like it's something out of Ghostbusters, essentially.
Okay, good. I like that.
That's my take. We'll see.
Okay.
But anything else about Angela and John?
No.
All right. Yeah, no, we talked a lot about it. Obviously, we've had some interruptions because of fun with Skype. But, there's a lot of great stuff. And just amazing performances, again, by Regina King and Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
Yes.
Fantastic stuff. All right, let's talk topic number 2. And this kind of also associates with John a little bit, but with Dr. Manhattan. Let's talk about Ozymandias. Because he's in a couple of scenes, including one that's the Watchmen's first post-credits scene.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into that, did you happen to catch the post-credit scene, or did you have to learn about it and then go back?
No, I don't know why, Charles, but for this time, I didn't. I was letting the show play.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought about that.
Right. Maybe it's just because it was such an amazing episode, you didn't want to let it go.
Yeah, I don't know, but so I had, I just, and all of a sudden I went, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And so, I was really happy with it.
Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah, normally I kind of let it play because I just like to hear the music, because a lot of times they had the great music. And then in this closing credit sequence, they had this great song by Jackie Wilson, a woman, a lover, a friend.
Yes.
Which is definitely going on my custom Watchmen soundtrack. I'm just saying.
Yes, absolutely.
But so I was really enjoying the music, and then I hear this little scritching noise, and and then we cut to Adrian, and I'm just like, oh my God, there's a post credit scene. I was stunned by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, it was a pleasant surprise. All right, so Adrian, first time we see Adrian in this episode, he's hanging out in 2009, just staring at his TVs in his little Antarctic fortress,
screaming, beating on his as we call it, the click.
Yeah, the remote control. Yeah, half of the TVs don't even work apparently.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he seems to be, he's not doing well.
Yeah, essentially we kind of see, we knew that Adrian was essentially insane.
Yes.
From the Watchmen comic book series. So here we are, 24 years later, and Adrian is, I think, descended a little further into his own madness.
Absolutely.
He's become kind of a hermit, crazy old hermit almost. But he's still, he's still in the process of, and we find out what the deal is with the raining squids from episode 1 in this episode.
Yes.
So we have Lindelof answering another important question in this episode. That apparently he's been regularly dropping collections of little baby squids on Earth. using a dimensional portal.
Yeah, and the idea
just to keep up the pretense of that
yeah.
that alien incursion that, obviously killed so many people in New York back in '85.
And they have a great discussion, Charles, about how his plan didn't totally work, because it has kept the world from getting, from blowing itself up.
Yes, it averted nuclear war.
Because of all the scariness of this invasion, there was an unexpected phobia about technology.
Right.
So while they've embraced the electric car, a lot of technology they've not embraced, which is why him and John have that discussion of Adrian going, look at all I've done. I've given this, and they keep making their bombs, and he's like, yeah, that's because they're afraid.
Well, and it makes them feel safe, he says. He tells Adrian,
right.
Yeah. So essentially, yes, they're still building bombs, and so Adrian's a little frustrated that he hasn't quite gotten the utopia that he thought he would.
Right, and it also bothers him. I think this is implied, and he actually kind of says it. He isn't getting credit for saving the world.
Right.
He has
his ego won't wants that credit.
Yes, he does. And despite him saying, I'm not going to give my plan like a Republic serial villain.
Yes.
He does want to share. Look at the tape that he gave President Redford.
Right.
That we saw earlier, where he's like, okay, let me explain everything that's going on to you.
Yeah. And
how I'm responsible for you being president.
Yeah, he can't just live on his accomplishment. He has to. He kind of wants people to know, even though if they know, then the hoax will be exposed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of his ego kind of overriding common sense here, a little bit.
And yes, and I love the idea that they both. I mean, I guess they were friends beforehand a little bit.
Yeah.
And the idea that they're still kind of friends, last time you tried to kill me. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
And, that was plan B. And then we find out there's a plan A for amnesia.
Yes.
Which was really I thought that was a nice point when he explains what he could do. And, John says, oh, how long? Psh, I've had it. That was my first plan.
Well, it's kind of an echo of that whole I did it 25 minutes ago.
Yes.
Reset from the original Watchmen comic book series when Rorschach and the Second Night Owl confront Adrian in Antarctica and they're talking about stopping his plan. And he's like, well, I just did. Oh, well, I did it 25 minutes ago. So here he's just saying, well, that plan to, like, how do we build that device? Well, to make you forget your Dr. Manhattan. Well, I did that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice little homage.
Really nice.
And perfectly in character, because Adrian is the kind of guy that likes to anticipate things and plan long term. So he kind of figured, well, at some point, Dr. Manhattan would want to be human. And so I'm going to build this. Or maybe he created it as a way to take Dr. Manhattan off the board if he became too much of a threat later on.
That's what I look at it as.
Like if he came, like presumably he thought Dr. Manhattan was on Mars, but he figured, well, he could always come back at any point. So I'm creating this as a preventative measure in case he comes back.
And I actually get the feeling that he had created it originally during the initial run of the comic and decided that, no, I'm going to go with destroying him, not just losing him.
Blowing him up, yes.
Yeah, blowing him up.
B for blowing him up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And then the phrase "be careful what you wish for" is so appropriate for this, because John starts explaining that on the moon there is a paradise.
On Europa, yes.
Yeah, Europa. And that
the moon of Jupiter, yes.
Yeah, there is a paradise. It is beautiful. It is teeming with life.
It's the utopia that Adrian wants.
And there is a whole society there that is looking for someone to worship.
Right.
And
well, that's right up Adrian's alley, right?
yeah,
He wants to be
Ozymandias
worshipped.
goes,
Yep.
"Oh, please, please." And then we know, because we know how the rest of the story goes, he quickly became bored with that.
Right. It wasn't like he got tired of the repetition, and it became a hell to him.
Mm-hmm.
So a hell he was determined to escape.
Yeah.
And obviously it was set up with the agreement that you're never going to leave.
Right.
And Adrian couldn't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to be the one in control. And Adrian's always he's essentially the ultimate control freak.
Yes.
And so obviously there's been all this plans. And then we see in the extra credit sequence where we have Adrian, he's in his cell. Or, well, first we see him getting smashed in the face with a bunch of tomatoes.
Yes.
So that kind of explains the whole tomato thing early on. And maybe it was Adrian remembering that moment. Maybe it was kind of a future Adrian after this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the game warden brings another cake to his cell. And, he talks about he's angry that Adrian wanted to leave the heaven that John created. And he makes this comment about, like, heaven's not enough because heaven doesn't need me.
Yeah.
And so the game warden leaves, and then inside the cake is that horseshoe that, if you recall earlier on, like I think it was episode 3 or something, Adrian said something along the lines of, "Not yet. I don't need this yet."
Yes.
So essentially there's more timey-wiminess going on with Adrian's story.
Yes.
That we're not being told of what's in the chronological order here. So, so Adrian starts digging himself out of his cell with that horseshoe.
Yes.
And we see how basically he starts giggling like a madman.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, he's full tilt crazy, I think, at this point.
He is full done. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is half baked.
So what did you make?
Really nice.
Did you like that extra credit scene?
I did. I think
post-credit scene, I should say.
Yeah. One of the things that I am really glad that they've established in all the press releases and all the interviews that they're going to wrap up this story to the best of their knowledge. Lindelof has made a joke about, I kind of understand now how important paying off mysteries are.
Right.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, because he's been accused of not paying them off, like leaving a lot of loose ends.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I am curious to see. This is a little bit of a longer episode that's going to happen tonight.
Right.
It's I think it's 68, 69 minutes, something.
Yeah.
It is fully over an hour, but they've got a lot to tie up. But yes. I'm curious to see how is Adrian going to, I would think he would escape somehow and get back on Earth.
Well, presumably somehow he escapes. We don't know how he escapes.
Yes.
Maybe it's that device.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because Lady True, we don't know what the Millennium Clock is for exactly yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what exactly landed in that yard that Lady True purchased the land for from that couple.
And is that Adrian came back?
Yeah, because my theory was that it was Adrian. Because in my theory that Lady True is Adrian's daughter.
Right.
From Vietnam. So who knows? We'll see. But
yes.
But we'll find out. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So really quick, topic number 3, I just want to touch on very briefly, but Will Reeves. So we get the return of Louis Gossett Jr. as Will Reeves in a scene in 2009 where before John implants Adrian's device in his forehead and forgets, he says he has one thing to tidy up first. So he goes to see Will, and essentially this is John checking off the boxes of his kind of bootstrap paradox puzzle.
Yes.
Where he has to essentially let Will know that Angela exists. And in the process of this, he's still having that conversation with the 2019 Angela, where she asks him, she asks John to tell Will to try to get information about Judd's murder.
Yes.
And in the process, she essentially creates that murder because she's the one who lets, through Dr. Manhattan, lets Will know that Judd Crawford is a racist who has a Klan robe in his closet and presumably is part of that Cyclops conspiracy.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? That...
And she realizes that to her horror. Like, she's like,
I caused all this.
Like, holy crap, did I cause all this? And apparently she did.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The idea that without meaning to, she kind of put all this into motion.
Right. Now the question, of course, is: was she predestined? Was she always going to do that?
Right.
We don't. That's up for the philosophy debate.
Yes,
I guess.
But it is just so interesting that he goes, who is that?
Yeah.
He doesn't recognize the name. And she put into effect everything that happened. And because it happened, she put it in effect. I mean,
yes.
It truly is
the chicken or the
circular
egg.
Logic. Yes. And,
which came first. Yes.
Yeah. And I love how she caught that. She was like, what did I do?
Right.
So yeah, I thought that was a really nice moment. And
it kind of explained how Will knew about Judd.
Yes.
So it kind of ticked that box off for Lindelof.
And it also, we're going to see, because she's worried about the kids, but John cares enough about the kids that he sends them to her grandfather, right? So we can, they'll be safe.
Yeah, presumably.
They're at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so presumably he's sending them to their great grandfather, presumably so that they'll be safe during all the stuff that Angela needs to get done first. So we don't have to worry about the kids until everything's played out, presumably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll see. Kids might be in for a surprise if she ends up becoming this next Dr. Manhattan, though.
Yeah. And I would be okay with that, even though it kind of concerns me.
Yeah.
She's such a great actress. And
I kind of hope not, because I really like her as Sister Night.
Yeah, I do too.
So but maybe temporarily it happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But that's the big thing tonight. So anything else about this episode?
Just so many nice moments. Did you notice this is a small little thing?
Yeah.
But when John is in front of Adrian,
right,
and he sends them to Jupiter's moon.
Yes.
And
Europa, yeah.
He catches the device. As in, because the device stays and it's falling, and John catches it.
Yes.
That's a small little thing, but those are kind of some of the fun little things that an actor can do to make it look just very, very slick.
Yes.
So I liked it. Everything about this episode, Charles, was just amazing. They keep amping the game, and I'm just really curious to see. I'm confident they're going to stick the landing. I just don't know how they're going to stick the landing tonight. And
that's good. I'm really glad they're keeping us guessing, because with a show like this, we're not seeing how things play out, but when they play out, it's so beautiful.
Yes.
So we'll see how it works out.
And I think there's enough. Like you've picked a few things up.
Yeah.
We've thought about a little bit. So I mean, I think that is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, perfect.
All right. So favorite quotes. You got any favorite quotes of the episode?
I do have a couple.
Right.
Not too many.
Go for it.
I would almost say, any time they're talking was just beautifully written. But I got a couple.
Yeah.
One, and I think this is so
because the dialogue
true.
is so good in this episode.
Yeah. When Angela says, if you know everything that's going to happen, what is there to be afraid of?
That's a good one.
I think that is just so profound
Yeah,
because it's true.
Yeah, I've got that whole thing, but yeah, go for it.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Wait. I'm sorry. No, I don't have that one whole thing.
Good.
Yeah, never mind.
And then the only one I had, just Jeremy Irons has just been a treasure on this.
Yes.
And, when he says, how do you know it's me? Because only Dr. Manhattan would have the balls to show up here wearing nothing but his birthday suit.
Yeah, that's one I had, yeah.
Yeah, all right, go for it.
No, that was it.
Okay.
I mean, you kind of took the punchline, so that's all right.
Okay.
So any other quotes?
No, go for it.
All right. Dr. Manhattan, early on, he says, the way I experience time is unique, and for you, particularly infuriating. I just thought that was good. That was to Angela.
Yeah.
And then later, Dr. Manhattan doing his little spiel about Europa, creating Europa, or, the utopia on Europa. It's 1985. A gossamer sheet of vapory atmosphere thickens into an azure blanket. Perched tundra becomes fertile savanna. Vast swords of green spreading across the mood's arid skin like a verdant rash. A primordial ocean transmutes into liquid creation engine. I step out into the amniotic lake, a hatchery stocked with miracles, finned, winged, and hoofed. And Angela replies, you walk on water? And Dr. Manhattan says, occasionally, yes. So I thought that was
great. Yes.
So I love that. Adrian and Dr. Manhattan talking about the device, where Adrian says, well, theoretically, we can insert a device into your prefrontal cortex that will short-circuit your memory. Without the awareness of your abilities, you wouldn't know how to use them. Except perhaps in a reflex in life-threatening situations. You could walk and talk and live among the normals undetected. You just wouldn't know you're Dr. Manhattan. And Dr. Manhattan says, and how long would it take you to make this device? And Adrian replies, oh, my dear sweet John, I made it 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. And very, very Adrian.
Yes, very, very Adrian.
And I got one last one.
Okay, good.
Right, really quickly. Angela and Dr. Manhattan, back to the conversation. Angela says, so that's a thing you can do? Give someone your powers? And Dr. Manhattan says, I suppose I could transfer my atomic components into some sort of organic material. If someone were to consume it, they would inherit my powers. Angela says, so you could put them in this egg, and if I ate it, I could walk on water? Dr. Manhattan says, theoretically, yes. Angela replies, but, well, I don't want kids. I've never wanted kids, and I'm never going to have kids. So sorry, Doc. You're going to have to find another egg to knock up.
That was a great line.
And then if you notice, she cracks the egg, puts it in the glass, and drinks it.
Yes.
So
very Rocky-ish.
What if Dr. Manhattan put part of his essence in her at that moment?
Yeah.
Then maybe she's already consumed it.
Yeah.
Because of his whole timey-wiminess.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, so what's your rating?
You know what? I know I'm the cheerleader judge.
Yes.
But I'm giving it 10 out of 10 untimely waffles.
Oh, you took mine.
Oh, really?
Well, sort of, because I give it 10 out of 10 Dr. Manhattan pancakes.
Okay.
Because he was making pancakes.
I thought it was waffles.
No, pancakes. He says, I'm making pancakes. Or maybe, no, wait a minute. I could be wrong, though. So let me choose another one. All right, really quickly. Okay. So I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. Let's see here. What would be good? I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 eggs.
Yeah.
Eggs in a beer glass.
Well, I almost picked 10 out of 10 smashed eggs because, he was bringing the eggs and she reached them and threw them down, which was, a very big symbol. Eggs have been, remember when she made the eggs, we had the smiley face.
Well, it's the whole thing about life too.
Yeah, it is. It's
and the chicken or the egg argument.
Yeah.
So it's become a big symbol. And I think you're right. I think it was waffles. I stand corrected. So, all right. Thanks for keeping me honest.
No problem, Charles. There is so much wonderfulness in this, and I'm just so excited. I will tell you, and we'll talk more about this next week.
Yes.
But I am happy either way, provided they stick the landing, which I feel they're going to do. If we get a one and done series, great, all did. If we decide they come up with another story, I trust them enough that to go with them on the second season. I like the idea that they are sitting there going, only if we have a story to tell are we going to do this, because they have set the bar really high.
Yeah. I still want to know the story of Dan Dryberg.
Yes.
And so I think that's enough ground there for a season 2.
Yeah.
Especially with how he and Lori broke up. And what happened with that. So I kind of want to know that story. So
that would be a good kind of a flashback to fill in that time.
Yeah.
Because ultimately where it's going.
Right.
So yeah.
So I kind of want to know that. So we'll see if see if that happens or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't, it doesn't. We still had these great 9 wonderful episodes.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping for more, because obviously I'm really digging the series, and I think HBO has a home run here. So I'm greedy. Yeah. I want to see more.
Absolutely.
We didn't get any fan mail this time. But if you want to write to us, your thoughts about tonight's Watchmen finale, which presumably if you are hearing this the day after, as hopefully I'll have it posted the day after, you can write us a quick email. Let us know your thoughts on the Watchmen finale, episode 9, you write to us at phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Twitter at phantomzonecast, or on Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Or on Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. That would be fantastic. Jesse, how about you? Where can they reach you?
I did want to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You talked about feedback. I did want to tell you, went to lunch with a friend of the podcast, Ken Schaefer.
Right.
And he had caught up on all these shows.
Yes.
And he loved the series. He thought that it was really complex. He agreed with everything that we've said about how this was really special. And so I just think,
he sounded like he didn't like the first episode.
Well, he was surprised at how much anger, and how much hate there was in this episode of that first episode.
Right.
And then him seeing that, he just has been really impressed with what they've done. And, he's someone who never watches real time, so he will end up watching it tonight because it's that good. Yeah. So
you don't want to wait for this one.
No.
I'm really looking forward to going back to the beginning of the series and watching it now that I know how it plays out, to pick up on stuff that I may have missed in those early episodes.
I have saved all of them on the DVR.
Yeah.
And I'm planning to do that after the finale. Sometime either next week or over the holiday weekend, just to watch all 9 in a row. I think it's going to be really, really beautiful to see how they tied everything together.
Yeah.
All right. So how to reach me?
Yes.
Couple ways. One, you can hear me join the very talented, I don't know if you've heard of him, but a guy named Charles Skaggs joins me.
He sucks.
No, he's amazing, to talk Doctor Who. Coming up in 2020, there is new Doctor Who episodes coming. So
Yay.
Charles and I will be going through, talking about it every week. We may have an announcement about a special co-host to be joining us.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
We're still negotiating. We got to figure out, the green M&Ms part, their rider and everything. But yes, we are hoping to.
I hope it works out.
Yes, but excited to be talking about new Doctor Who with Charles. In the meantime, you can check. We got coming up. We're going to have a special Christmas episode of Next Stop Everywhere. You can hear we just finished talking the Titans on Titan Talk, a series that wasn't as strong as Watchmen, but it had its highlights. It's certainly worth watching, and you can hear Charles and I talk about it.
Right.
And
we just did our season 2 wrap-up special not too long ago.
And Phantom Zone, where we talk TV, comic book TV shows.
That's this show right now. You're talking. Listen to.
Thank you, Charles. Yes, you can hear. Hopefully, you've listened to us talk about.
If you're listening to the Phantom Zone podcast, please check out the Phantom Zone podcast.
God.
That's
I'm going through all the lists, trying to forget it.
I know. It's hard, isn't it?
Yes, and Next Stop Everywhere, the Bruce Springsteen podcast that I do, and I am going to be doing 12 days of Christmas music where I count down some of my favorite Christmas and holiday songs over the next 12 days before Christmas.
Yeah, I think it's Set Listing Bruce instead of Next Stop Everywhere, but that's okay.
I cannot talk today, Charles.
That's all right.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
no problem.
Bruce,
everybody check out Set Listing Bruce. It's awesome.
Charles, save me from myself. Where can they find your fine work?
Well, I don't know how to follow that, but I'll try my best. All right, everybody, please check me out at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things. Come here, you. Oh, come on.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news about Crisis, news about Watchmen, news about Krypton or whatever we're talking about, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news. News of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where we just had our 50th episode, and Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, etc., etc. And I would really appreciate if you check that out as well, in addition to the others. And then coming up next time on the Phantom Zone, we're going to be discussing See How They Fly. And that's what we're going to be talking about in episode 174, the Watchmen season finale, series finale. We're not sure. All we know is it's Watchmen episode 9. This is where the big wrap-up is supposed to take place. Do they stick the landing? Let's hope. Like Jesse said, they have a lot to talk about, and only apparently 70 minutes around that to wrap everything up. We'll see if they do, and do it in a satisfying way. I think they will. I'm feeling optimistic.
I'm feeling optimistic too. I really, I know I'm just slobbing over this, but and you know what I love, Charles, kind of before we get out of here.
Yes.
How many top 10 lists this show has made about TV critics. It is consistently there have made people's top 10 lists.
Deservedly so, in my opinion.
I think so too. But I just think that is really well done. And so we're going to see how they stick the landing, but it's going to be great. But whether it's good or not, Charles and I will be here to talk to you about it.
Yep. All I know is if Regina King doesn't get an Emmy for this, there's going to be hell to pay. Just saying.
Amen. Absolutely.
All right. So everybody, thank you again for listening. Drop us a line what your thoughts are on the Watchmen finale, and then come on back for episode 174, See How They Fly, right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.